Okay, beautifuls. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. So I'm really excited for this first session of live. We're really diving into the foundations. So the foundations of mental, emotional, physical health and wellness. And kind of our main topic for today is we're diving into this new view on mental wellness. So we're going to be talking about kind of the foundations here of building an anxiety resilient mindset. So, what I'd invite everybody to do as we just kind of embark on this journey together is I invite you to just allow yourself to let go of anything that you've ever thought or believed about yourself, your mental well being, anxiety, self criticism, perfectionism. Just allow yourself to let go of all of those preconceived notions for a moment and allow yourself to open up to a whole new possibility, a whole new approach, a whole new way of seeing yourself, seeing your mind, seeing your life, and really allow yourself to embrace this kind of beginner's mind of, okay, we're brand new, we're opening up to this whole new possibility. So here's the thing, we live in what we call an anxiogenic world. So I just want to validate this for you if you have been feeling a lot lately, especially with the state of the world right now, especially with everything that's going on in the world and our personal lives. I just want to validate this for you. It's no wonder you're anxious. It's no wonder that we all feel anxious, because here's the thing, so many reasons are there that contribute to us feeling unwell, unbalanced, unstable. And let's just highlight a few. So these are some of the external factors that contribute to our anxiety. So we live in this anxiogenic world, which means anxiety inducing world. Our environment isn't really conducive unless you're living in the mountains in the Himalayas, which, looking at all of us, we don't live in these kinds of places. So, we have more responsibilities and commitments than ever before. With social media, we're constantly intaking every tragedy, every difficulty, every world, storm that happens in our world. We're constantly exposed to endocrine disrupting blue lights and electromagnetic frequencies from our technology, which really affects our nervous system and how we feel. We're working more than ever before. We have so many family and societal pressures and expectations. We have our own relationship stresses. We have such a time pressure, fast paced society. We're overstimulated all the time. We have this is more new. If we think of our parents, our grandparents, they didn't have this urgency culture that we do. They didn't need to be available to the world 24/7. And nowadays, with our cell phones and social media, we really just feel like we have to be available to the world 24/7. We're so disconnected from nature more than ever before. And especially during, pandemic times, I know a lot of people are kind of staying indoors more frequently and not getting the sunlight, not getting the exposure to fresh air, to life, to nature. So these lack of sense of community, this is huge as well. Is a lot of us, we feel more connected in terms of we have these followers and we have these Facebook and social media, but we feel typically more disconnected than ever before. So a lot of these things, not all of these things might apply to you personally, but I want to highlight this as we can see that the world that we live in isn't really designed to make us feel peaceful and calm. Really often, the world that we live in is making us feel really anxious. Now, here's the thing, we also have our own internal struggles, right? So we can't just blame the world. We have stuff going on inside as well. So if we're facing things like low self-worth, we have negative thought patterns, we're maybe not getting ideal sleep, we have these impeccable standards upon ourselves to achieve a certain amount, to be a certain amount, to be perfect. If we have unprocessed emotions or past traumas that we haven't yet dealt with, of course, all of these are contributing to why we feel so anxious, so overwhelmed, so disconnected from ourselves. And finally, of course, then there's the physical side of things. So in our physical body, with all of these external and mental factors, so many of us experience nervous system dysregulation. Our nervous system isn't regulated to the natural rhythms and cycles of our physical life, as well as the nature of life around us. With our food supply not being so ideal and full of chemicals and toxins and yielding less actual nutrition in our food, we have nutritional deficiencies. Our bodies flooded with stress chemicals of just trying to stay on top of life, stay on top of our finances, our work, our responsibilities, our hormones, our gut health might not be doing so ideal. And all of this contributes to how we feel in our mental wellness. The overuse of stimulants, right? Really often, in order to cope with the intensity of life, what do we reach for? We reach for coffee, for, sometimes alcohol or stimulating things that kind of keep us going, but ultimately in the long term cause anxiety. So I want to just validate this for you is anxiety and stress and overwhelm are really a natural part of human life, right? And I want to just let you know, that it doesn't need to be who you are. It doesn't need to define who you are. These feelings of anxiety and stress, overwhelm, they don't have to hold you back from doing what you love and really living the life of your dreams. In reality, it's not that you'll never feel anxious or stressed again. And nobody can promise you that, because these things are a natural part of life, and you will feel stressed, you will feel overwhelmed, and you will feel anxious. But with the right tools, we can learn how to minimize it. We can reduce its frequency. We can reduce the intensity of it. It doesn't have to be this like part of your personality and something that you feel identified with. Just sometimes we say, oh, I'm just an anxious person. That's just who I am, right? We just accept, oh, I'm just an anxious person and I just have to live with it, right? And I want to let you know that you can, with like the fullness of my heart, you can discover who you are and what life is beyond this inner mental chaos. And whether that shows up for you as anxiety or self-criticism or, self-doubt, lack of self-confidence, all of these are kind of anxiety in disguise. But I want you to know that this is absolutely a possibility for you. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with you. If you're experiencing these things, you're feeling anxious, you're beating yourself up, you're shaming yourself for feeling these things, I want to really validate there's no malfunction in you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, you're not flawed, and you're certainly not alone. So many women that I work with experience the exact same things that you're facing, that I face from time to time. And so really often we think that sometimes, oh, we just have this, condition called anxiety, or many of us wouldn't even identify as that. If we have more high functioning anxiety, that label wouldn't resonate with us. But ultimately, in this anxiogenic world that we live in, we do all face anxiety from time to time. So I just want to validate that for you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're human. And we're going to learn the tools of how to build our anxiety resilience. And this is the thing, is that this isn't always how life has to be for you. If you find yourself right now in this rut with the state of the world, with your personal responsibilities, feeling disconnected from yourself, feeling overwhelmed and beating yourself up for it, this isn't how it always has to be for you. And you don't always have to feel this way. You don't have to feel stuck in this experience, in this like downward spiral of negative thoughts that just pull you down and keep you stuck from really living the life that you want to be living. So let's talk why everything that you've tried may not have been able to really help at this point. Because let's be honest, like up until now, you've probably tried everything when it comes to getting on top of your mental health, of staying balanced, staying connected to yourself. You've probably tried, personally, I know that so many of you have meditated, you've tried yoga, you know all these beautiful journal prompts. Maybe you've come to Bali for a beautiful yoga retreat or a training of some sort. Maybe you've gone to therapy, or, in times of desperation, when we feel really just like, I can't handle this pressure, this anxiety, this overwhelm, perhaps we've even gone to our doctor, like, I need something that's going to help. And these are all great. They're all band-aids. And in fact, they're band-aids that I recommend to get us through periods. But there's usually a deeper reason as to why our approach hasn't been really working. So how I usually like to share it is, really often there's something missing, a missing link when it comes to our approach to mental wellness, or in the application of that approach. So I don't want to just teach you a bunch of like tips and tricks that you could find on Google of how to really make this stick for you. We need to be able to understand not only what's going to be helpful for us, but unless we make that things that are going to help us so accessible, so available to us, so practical that we can actually start to apply it, that we can start to see the changes. So let's talk about the approach. So why is it that we actually need a holistic approach to mental wellness? Mental health, our mental state, isn't just about our brains. We are multidimensional beings with a multitude of physical and mental and emotional and social and spiritual needs. And the thing is if we actually zoom too far, and this is a mistake that I have definitely made in my own self-healing, my own personal development journey, is if we zoom in too far into one aspect of our being. For example, if we zoom too far into the mind, if we're just doing talk therapy, if we're just meditating, if we're just journaling, and we're missing, some of the deeper work, over here, if we have unresolved trauma, if we're living out of alignment with our values, it doesn't matter how much you meditate, if you're not living true to you, you're always going to feel anxious because you're going to feel disconnected from the truth of who you are, the truth of why you're here in the world. Another example, in another period, I kind of started off with, really working on the mind. And eventually I learned about the body of like, oh, wow, my gut health is connected and my nutrition is connected. And, I need to be eating right. I need to be getting quality sleep. But at a certain stage in my own healing journey, I focused way too heavily just on the body, where I was so focused on diet and getting my diet perfect and, so extreme of like, oh, I can only eat this, I can't eat this, such an extreme diet that in fact, my approach to healing my body actually became a source of anxiety because I was zooming in way too far into one aspect. So, what I invite you to do is I invite you to look at what maybe some of the underlying causes of your mental state is, and start to explore, okay, in order to have a holistic approach, we need to be looking at so much more than just our mind, so much more than just changing our mindset. This is 50% of it. Like the mind is such an essential piece to our mental wellness, and getting on top of, reprogramming our subconscious mind, changing and rewiring the way that we think, having tools to process our emotions as they come up in the moment effectively, having, the right mindset, self-awareness. But we also need tools to be able to physically build our resilience towards stress. So when anxiety, when, physical stress pops up for you, your body can withstand it. As well as we need to be looking a little bit deeper. So do we feel a true sense of belonging and connection to others, to ourselves, and to life? Are we living in alignment with our needs, with our values, with our soul purpose? This is something so overlooked. You can meditate all you want, but if you're disconnected from who you are, if you don't truly love yourself and accept yourself, you can sit in the Himalayas and meditate all you want, but it won't really get to the underlying root cause. So this is the approach. This is why we want this holistic mind, body, and soul approach. Now let's talk the application. So we have kind of three main stages of transformation. And this is something that I like to share because people think they've tried everything and they feel a little bit helpless and hopeless. And they're just like, I don't know what to do anymore, right? Like these negative thought spirals are just so bombarding, and I know what to do, but I can't seem to make these things stick. So here's the thing. Different stages, we focus on different things. So in our initial stage, we're kind of in this information stage. So here we're kind of collecting data. We're taking courses, we're reading books, we're listening to podcasts, and we're just learning like, wow, there's so many things that I could be doing to help myself. We're in this learning phase, right? And this information, this is something that we have, right? We consume it, we take it in. This is knowledge and information that we have, which is really helpful. When we're in this phase of information, we're really working at the level of the mind. So this is where we want to start. We want to be in this space of just absorbing knowledge and taking it all in, and, learning these journal prompts, trying this meditation, trying this yoga practice, exploring talk therapy, doing all these different things. But we want to start here. We don't want to stop here. And what I really want to focus on is in this training, in Thrive, we're not just focusing on giving you more tips and tricks. We're not just giving you more data. We're teaching you how to actually transform that information into knowledge. So how does information become knowledge? We do that through actually applying it. It's one thing to intellectually know, oh yeah, that would be good for me. I know I should be doing all of this stuff, but without actually applying it, we kind of miss the mark, right? So knowledge is something that we know. It's not just something that we've learned, we know it in our minds. It's not just something that we have, it's something that we do. So now we're physically doing it, we're trying it, we're exploring it. And knowledge is something that works on the level of the body. So it's not just something we know up here, it's something that we now know in our body. And this is where we really start to see a change. So you're in this knowledge phase if you have learned so many different tools and techniques and you've kind of dabbled with them, you've played with them, you've tried a few things here or there, but maybe you haven't had the consistency to really see the results. So the next stage, So the next stage is wisdom. We don't want to just have information, knowledge. We want to have wisdom. And how do we transform knowledge into wisdom? We do that through repetition. So through actively practicing. So these types of, to improve our mental health, we have to practice, right? And the kind of key word here is commitment. This is where commitment really comes in. Information is fun. It's exciting. We're like, fascinated by all that we could be doing to help ourselves. We find ourselves like going down the rabbit hole of Instagram, reading inspirational quotes and looking at, inspiring reels and reading blog posts and videos and podcasts. But unless we're actually applying it and then practicing it, we don't have wisdom. So wisdom is something not just that we've learned or that we know, but it's something we embody. It's no longer something that just we have or that we do. It becomes who we are. It becomes a part of us. This is knowledge that you now own. It's a part of you. And we're working in the level of our energy. We're working at the level of the soul. So this is something I invite you to just explore. Okay, where are you at in kind of your personal development journey? Do you have a lot of information that maybe you haven't really given a solid chance to really apply? Do you have a lot of knowledge that maybe you haven't practiced to the degree where it really stuck? And here's the thing, we can't say that we've really tried something and that, oh, I tried meditating, but if we didn't practice it enough, like it's one thing to sit down and, close your eyes and meditate one time. That's transforming information into knowledge. But without really practicing it and repeating it in order to see the results, we can't say, oh, I tried meditation, it didn't work for me. No. So I invite you to just explore, okay, where might you be at? And I invite you to, through Thrive, don't let this just be intellectual knowledge for you. Don't let everything that we're going to go over together just be tips and tricks and things that you should be doing, but something that you don't apply and practice. Now, why is it so hard for us to actually apply things? Really often, if this information that we receive is too big, it's asking too much of us, it's going to feel very hard to apply it. If I were to say to you, okay, so meditation is good for you, and you should meditate 30 minutes a day, every single day of your life in order to see the results. That's too much for you. No, we can maybe build up gradually towards that through repetition. That knowledge of meditation is good for you can become wisdom that, oh, wow, I know meditation is so good for me. I don't want to stop. But it has to be practical. And that's why in Thrive, we're really focusing on the most direct route, the most practical, like 5 minutes or less practices to instantly create shifts that you do feel accessible to be able to make the changes, be able to apply and practice it. Okay, so anxiety and stress and overwhelm, and we can insert whatever emotional experience we're feeling, is so much more than just a frustration, an annoyance, or something here that's here to punish you. All emotions, and I've used the keyword anxiety here as I know that this is something that a lot of people face, but insert whatever word kind of resonates with you here. Anxiety is a messenger. It's here to show you something. All emotions are here for a reason. They all have a deeper meaning of what they're trying to show you, what they're trying to reveal to you, and what they're lovingly trying to nudge you towards. So anxiety isn't here to punish you. Anxiety is here to awaken you. Anxiety is a part of your inner friendly guidance system, and it always shows up with a message for you. So anxiety and stress, overwhelm, self-criticism, they show up to tell us when there's something going on in either our internal world or an external world, and sometimes a combination of both, often, that needs our attention. So it's informing us, hey, something's out of balance, something's not quite right here, or something isn't quite aligned. And so whether that's a component of your health, maybe the way that you're looking after yourself, your self-care, whether it's showing you that maybe there's some emotions that need to be processed. Maybe there's some suppressed grief or some suppressed anger, suppressed sadness, right? That's kind of living on in you as this residual anxiety. Whether something's out of alignment with your career, right? Maybe you're in a toxic work environment. Maybe there's something going on in your relationships that needs to be communicated. Maybe there's lack of community or lack of help, lack of support. So whenever there's something that is out of balance or out of alignment, anxiety will show up as a little messenger, right? And so it allows us to see anxiety is always there for a reason, and it always holds a deeper meaning. It has a deeper message. Our job in our personal development journey is to be able to uncode, to decode that message and to respond to that deeper calling. Now, you might be thinking that that's very optimistic, that anxiety isn't here to punish you, it's here to awaken you. And you might be saying, like, but Bindi, how can this be here for me? Anxiety is awful. And I want to validate that for you because I've been there and it is awful. It can feel totally awful. It's totally overwhelming. You feel out of control. You feel disconnected. It's an awful feeling. So, how dare I say, that it's here for you? And the thing is you might not be ready to see it like that, and that's okay. There's no reason. We can go with this kind of mindset of, there's no reason for it. It's just who I am. It's just something I have to live with. It's just how my brain works, and we can say that there's no reason for it. It's just there. But when we kind of reject that we have any ability to accept it as it is, to change it as it is, then that's a really disempowering perspective, the way that I see it, that we can't do anything about it, right? And so I always choose what's the more empowering perspective. And for me personally, it's that, these are messengers. They're here to teach us something. So how do we actually decode this message? So sometimes decoding the message behind the anxiety and responding to it can be as simple as just changing your sleep patterns or eating better. Often it's something bigger, and more often it's not just one thing. So many things are contributing, and really often it's not just, oh, you didn't get a good night's sleep. Really often it's like bigger than that. And often decoding the deeper message behind our anxiety and overwhelm is often about going back to the dreams that we had as little girls. It's about putting ourselves first for once. It's about actually taking action towards the life that you truly want, because secretly, you know deep down that there's more for you in life than this. And this is where it gets really, really exciting to me, is when we start to decode the message behind our anxiety, it changes the trajectory of our lives. The work that you're about to embark on here isn't just about changing your mind. It's not just about changing our mindset and feeling a little bit more balanced. Understanding our anxiety, understanding and decoding our emotions, decoding our limiting beliefs and why they show up for us doesn't just change our mind, it opens up and changes our entire life. Because when we understand our anxiety more deeply, we get the deeper message. And when we understand this message, it gives us the confidence to go for our dreams. It gives us the confidence to go on that spontaneous adventure, to quit that job that doesn't serve you anymore, to go back to school. You don't have to stay in the same job that you did when you went to university. You can make these changes. It gives us the permission through this understanding to let go of that relationship or that friendship that doesn't serve us anymore without going into this downward spiral of anxiety. It gives us the ability to start that dream business. So this is why getting to the deeper meaning of our emotions is so essential and changes every aspect of our life. So I invite you to consider this possibility. What if anxiety isn't something that's happening against you, but it's something that's actually happening for you? So what if anxiety isn't actually this thing that's been keeping you small and holding you back and preventing you from living life to the fullest? But what if anxiety is actually the thing that's been nudging you towards these things? Because your soul knows. There's a part of you deep down that knows it's so uncomfortable not living in alignment with your needs, overextending yourself, giving to everybody else around you and not taking the time for you, for what matters to you, your life, your purpose, your needs and values and dreams. And maybe there's a part of you, a deeper part of you, your soul, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, that knows how important that is for you. And so we allow ourselves to be willing to prioritize ourselves. This anxiety shows up nudging you towards, hey, you matter. Your life matters. Your mental wellness, your happiness, your fulfillment matters. And it gives us this opportunity to be truer to ourselves, to prioritize ourselves, to prioritize not just being responsible, not just taking care of everything that needs to be care of, finishing that email, making sure that the cat is fed or the kids are fed, but also to prioritize you and what truly matters deep inside for you. So, anxiety's there asking you to make the most of this beautiful life that you've been given. It's nudging us to go for the things that we really want, despite the potential challenges and heartache and disappointment. And by doing this work, we can feel safe. We can feel resilient to be able to go after our dreams and to live life more fully because we understand the nudges of our anxiety and we have the tools to no longer allow that anxiety, that overwhelm, that self-criticism and limiting beliefs to hold us back. So I want you to remember that anxiety, it's not this evil enemy in your life. It's an innocent messenger that you can befriend, and it's a teacher looking out for you. So I invite you to ask yourself, what's maybe out of alignment for you right now? What might anxiety be nudging you towards? What's maybe imbalanced in your life that anxiety might be bringing your attention towards? Are you giving too much of yourself? Are you not asking for help? Are you not giving yourself the permission to focus on your self-care? If you have a pen and paper, take a moment to just reflect on that. Maybe make a little note. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Mastering our anxious mind, our self-critical mind, our perfectionistic mind, the limiting beliefs, all of these things. So mastering our mind, this is so cliche, and I'm sorry to bring in so much cheesiness, but this really is, in terms of our mental health, our personal development journey, it really is a journey. It's not a destination. So we like to, in order to get on top of our mental health, we like to see it from this perspective that this is a practice. It's not like a one-time poof and you're healed and you'll never experience anxiety again. You'll never experience, stress or overwhelm. It really is a practice that takes commitment. It takes courage to go inside, to look at ourselves, to unpack some of our emotions, our deeper traumas, look at what's out of alignment in our life. And in this journey, I invite you to bring a tremendous amount of compassion for yourself. If there's one key word here of how to walk this self-development, self-healing journey in a sustainable way, the key word is compassion. We have to be gentle with ourselves because things are going to come up. It's going to be hard. And this compassion is what's going to get us through it. So to master our minds, we need the coping skills to navigate the ups and downs of life, to be able to just ride it out when things get really hard. We need to build up our resilience. So this is our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual resilience. So we can develop the skills that we need to reduce our susceptibility to life's chaos, to the stresses and triggers that are naturally going to show up. Mindset, processing our emotions, getting good quality sleep, our gut health, our hormones, our nutrition, all of this plays a big part. And so this gives us the resilience to meet the intensity of life around us. The thing is life is so uncertain now. Especially now. It can feel so hard. The pressures we face are constant. Life outside is chaotic. If you pick up your phone for 2 seconds, you see the chaos of the world. And this journey is all about how to find calm inside, despite the chaos of the world around us. We can't control what happens out there, but we can learn how to take care of us. So how do we do that? That's what Thrive is all about. And the first step is really being able to change our thought patterns. So the only reason that you feel any anxiety is because of the thoughts that you're thinking, the beliefs that you're believing, the emotions that you're probably resisting, and the images that your mind is creating in response to all that. So imagine this for a sec. If we took out the part of your brain that thinks, right? There would be no anxiety. If those thoughts didn't exist, you wouldn't feel anxious, right? So the thoughts and the pictures in our minds, they create stress chemicals, right? If the thoughts that we're thinking are, oh my God, this country is blowing up, and oh my God, this pandemic, and the natural places that our mind goes, oh, am I going to have enough time for this? Like our mind catastrophizes the smallest of things. Let me give you an example. Right? An hour before this, I was like, oh my God, my Zoom settings, everything was wrong. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And my mind naturally catastrophized the worst case scenario. Right. And fortunately, I have the tools to manage that. I'm not exempt. Absolutely. I get stress. I get anxiety. All of these things show up for me. And for example, that scenario playing in my mind of like, oh my God, are the Zoom settings going to work? Blah, blah, blah. It was creating stress chemicals in my body. And by me responding to what I needed in that moment was a little bit of organization and just writing down, okay, just write down the steps. It's all good. Then I could feel the calm chemicals kicking back in of I'm safe, I'm supported, everything's fine. But isn't it fascinating how our minds can blow up the tiniest event of working? Are my Zoom settings going to work into this big event, right? So this is the very first step in really starting to create the changes that we want to see in our life is we have to start within. We start with our mind, and we do that by changing our thought patterns. So what's the very first step in actually changing these thought patterns? And this is going to be one of our main focuses of today. As we start to change our thoughts, we change our minds by first and foremost developing self-awareness. And I have to admit, the awareness piece of our personal development journey, it's not the sexiest of all the tools. It's not the most glamorous, it's not the most exciting, but I would go as far as to say is that it is the most important. And really often, I know for me, like when I first kind of came to this work, I was like, okay, how do I reprogram my mind? What's the best affirmation? How can I stop these negative thought loops? What should I do for healing my traumas? What's the most exciting meditation technique? Or what's the coolest breathing technique that I can do? And all of my teachers were like, you have to develop self-awareness first, because being able to be aware, to become conscious of our minds, our bodies, our experience objectively really is the foundation of all of our healing work. So what does this actually look like? So to develop self-awareness, in order to change anything in our lives or our minds, we first have to know what exactly it is that we're changing, right? So self-awareness really is the first step. Without self-awareness, we kind of stay in this autopilot mode, just stuck in our patterns and the thought loops that don't really serve us. So we start to practice mindfulness. And some of you, if we've worked together before, you've heard me say mindfulness. Excuse me, you've probably seen it on social media and blogs. We hear it in our modern culture, no? So we practice mindfulness. And my favorite definition of mindfulness is that mindfulness is the continual and non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. It's a practice of becoming aware of ourselves and our inner experience and the world around us with a sense of curiosity, without judging, without trying to change it, simply being aware of it, being conscious of it. So developing this self-awareness is I would say it's the most essential skill that we can learn to cultivate in our personal development and healing journey. And without it, we really are quite limited. Without self-awareness, all of these tools of meditating and practicing your yoga and doing your therapy, all of these things are quite limited because they're more of a bandage approach, right? Stuff comes up, we release a little bit of emotion through talk therapy, and we kind of move on. But we keep going back each and every week with more stuff, with the same story and a different scenery, right? Unless we have self-awareness, this is the number one thing that we need. So we have to come off of autopilot and start to take back control. So here's the thing, most of the time our minds are on autopilot. We're so immersed in the world of our thoughts that we aren't even aware that there's a script continually running through our minds all day. Here's the thing, we think on average 70,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And I just invite you as a little experiment to ask yourself, okay, so some of you it's evening time, right? Reflect through your day. Can you remember the 70,000 thoughts that you thought today, right? And some of them are very practical, like, oh, make the note so that your Zoom settings work. Oh, I have to remember to make myself a cup of tea because sometimes my throat gets sore when I'm teaching. All of these things. Other thoughts that go through our mind that we're completely unaware of is, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. She's more beautiful than I am. That was a really stupid thing to say. Oh my God, they must hate me. Why haven't they replied yet? All kinds of thoughts go on in our mind. And these thoughts are running like a dialogue in our brain. They're coming so fast. They come and go so quickly. And so there's so many of them that we rarely have the chance to truly examine them, to question our thoughts, to look at them objectively. And one of the key skills that we want to start to develop is the ability to examine our thoughts, to be able to question, okay, is this belief, if I'm walking through my day with this unconscious belief, right? We're not consciously walking through the world saying, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. But subconsciously, right? If we show up and we think like, oh, I'm so nervous before this meeting, and we're just so worried about our anxious mind, behind the scenes, there's this script saying, I'm not good enough. And that's why we feel anxious. Because a little bit deeper in our unconscious mind, which isn't visible to us on the conscious level, is that there's this script of, oh, you're not good enough, you're not capable, you're not smart enough, you're not this enough. Oh, if you fail, what will happen? And the story goes on. So we tend to believe, right, without self-awareness, that the script that plays in our mind all day it's us. It's just who we are. It's just how our brain works. And we really often, we believe that voice inside of our head. And we accept everything that that voice inside of our head says as truth, as the truth of who we are and the truth of how the world is. We never take the time to question, oh, that's interesting that right now I'm believing that I'm not good enough. Where's that come from? And we can start to identify it back to its original source of when you were 5 years old and you got 60% on your math homework and you felt shamed for that. And so these things stick with us and they play. Same story, different scenery, right? So we need to zoom out. The goal here is to be able to zoom out and be able to see our thoughts almost from a distance, see them objectively, so that we can actually do something about them and challenge the thoughts and question them. So we need to make the unconscious conscious, okay? So in reality, the chatter in our mind is just our thoughts. And a key thing I want you to remember here is thoughts are not facts, okay? There's actually nothing personal about your thoughts. These thoughts that you're thinking all day long, they're just random subconscious phenomena. They're electrochemical impulses and responses that are firing neurons in the brain. They're random, they're subconscious phenomena just passing through. So they serve a purpose. We love our minds, no? So helpful. We love our thoughts. They serve a purpose of helping us solve problems. They help us create and form connections. But if we're relying too much on our thoughts and we believe everything that we think, we're setting ourselves up for a very anxious experience. We get caught up in our heads, no? We feel like our mind is just racing a million miles a minute, and there's no space for us to actually just pause, zoom out for a sec, and to examine our thoughts. We think that our thoughts this is because our thoughts determine how we feel. So our thoughts determine how we feel, how we act, and therefore too, how we experience ourselves in the world around us. So we need to learn how to become aware of our thoughts and make the unconscious, right, conscious, by taking what is invisible in our minds in the subconscious layers that we can't see in our everyday moments and shining the light of our awareness into the shadows of the mind ultimately, and turning the light on, as it were, into the darkness of our mind, making what is invisible visible, making what is unconscious conscious. And then we're empowered to do something about it. If things are just hidden away in the darkness of our mind, we don't see it, and we just are constantly playing out patterns. We're going to keep repeating the same situation again in different scenery. So I always like to share it like this. Things aren't always as they seem, right? When it comes to our minds. So the way I see it, there's two truths, okay? There is what we call factual truth. So this is the absolute reality. This is the truth, the fact beyond any emotional perceptions. Now we also have our emotional truth. And when it comes to our own healing, we're actually focusing on what is true for us, our own emotional truth of how we experience the facts of life. So this is something really important for us to know, is that our emotional truth, in order to see the facts, is that it goes through a filter. Imagine it like this. We're all walking around in life wearing these rose-colored glasses or whatever color you like. If you see the world so optimistically, it's probably pink. If you see the world in such a sad way, then it's probably blue. And your life experiences have created certain thoughts and emotions and beliefs and perceptions and biases and a sense of identity that colors how we see the facts of life. And we see this, show up so much in relationships. Look at the world right now. Okay, perfect example. There is the facts, there's the factual truth. And every single person is looking at the facts through an emotional filter of their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own beliefs, their own perception, their own sense of identity. And this is why we see radically different realities out there. right? One person is so fixated. This is the truth. This is the fact. And, science on both sides will have great evidence, great confirmation on every side of every story out there. And the reality is that so as long as we're human, we can't help but have bias. We can't help but have this filter upon which we see reality. And this becomes essential for us to understand as well, not just for how we see reality, but for how other people see us, right? Between me and the factual truth is my emotional truth, which is from, my past experiences, my upbringing, my conditioning, my negativity bias, my past traumas. That's the filter upon which I see the facts. And the next person, between the fact and them, is their own emotional truth, which is the sum of their limitations, their past traumas, their mental conditioning, their cultural upbringing. And so they're seeing it through another reality. The fact is the same, but two people can be occupying the exact same time, the exact same moment, the exact same facts, and have two radically different experiences. In this way, this also helps us to know what people think about you, right? For all my people pleasers out there, what people think of you has nothing to do with you and has everything to do with their own filter upon reality. So if somebody likes you, it's because their filter allows them to see you in that way. If somebody doesn't like you, it's because their filter doesn't allow them to see you in that way. And so we have nothing to do with it, and we have no control over what people think of us. So can I give you an example of kind of how this plays out? I have two cats and I have one kitten. And we live in the jungle. You can see around, like my house is quite open here. And my little kitten loves to play with snakes. Okay. I like snakes. I don't love when she brings them in and torments them. So here's the thing. She will bring in snakes sometimes, and as best as I can, I rescue them and I go put them out. But sometimes when I wake up in the first thing in the morning, it's quite dark in my villa. I wake up early and I come out, and sometimes there's been a moment where I will kind of see through my vision, there's something kind of squiggly looking on the floor, and I get startled, right? I'm like, oh, is that a snake? Did my cat bring in a snake? Is that a snake? Is it alive? Is it not alive? And the reality is that I turn the light on, and I now realize that thing that I was originally so startled by, oh my God, that's a snake, my emotional truth. When I turn the light on, I see the fact that it was a leaf, right? So we can all apply this into our life. We can all realize a moment where something that we deemed as being fact, and then through, another realization, realized, oh, that was just an emotion. That was an emotional truth. That wasn't the fact. This snake was only a snake in my mind. It was never a snake. It was always a leaf. But my mind perceived it as being that snake. So let's take another example. You standing in front of the mirror. So many women do this, no? Standing in front of the mirror and you're looking at yourself and all of these thoughts are coming up. Oh my God, my skin. Oh, this pimple. Oh, I'm getting so wrinkly. I'm getting old. My hair is a disaster. I really need to get my hair done. And we're standing in front of the mirror, like picking ourselves apart. Oh, my belly, look at the cellulite, blah, blah, blah. The only fact in that moment is not all that your mind is saying. That's all emotional truth. All the stories that you're telling yourself, looking in front of the mirror, you're not good enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not this or that. That's an emotional truth. The only fact in that moment is that there's a woman standing in front of a mirror. That's the only fact. And the stories that are playing in your mind are not the truth of who you are. It's a filter upon which you see yourself in the mirror because of cultural conditioning, because of magazines, because of social media and comparison and all these things. But it's not the fact. So our mind is constantly making meaning out of situations in order to make sense of them, right? But the meaning that we assign to the facts isn't always accurate. We have this mechanism in our brain called the negativity bias, and we're 9 times more likely to see the negative in a situation versus the positive. We're 9 times more likely to remember an event from the past as being negative versus have a positive memory. And this negativity bias it's meant to keep us safe, right? Its main function is to protect us, to keep us safe. And so naturally, we see the facts and the truth of life through this negativity bias. It's human nature. We all have it, right? The facts of go through this negativity of skepticism of, what do you call that? Where you can't see things totally as they are because of this filter. So it's a protection mechanism. And we want to develop this self-awareness to be able to see beyond our conditioning, see beyond our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and to be able to see the truth of what is as it actually is, right? So I'll leave it at that. We're going to come back to this topic, but I'll leave it at that for now. So can I share with you the most important realization that I have ever had in my life? And I hope that it's impactful for you as well. So the most important realization that I have ever experienced out of all of the workshops, all of the classes, all of the times in India, all of the everything, the most important realization, teaching that I've ever received is that you are not your mind. You have a mind. You are not your thoughts. You have thoughts. You are not your emotions. You experience emotions. You are the thinker. You are the experiencer. You are the witness of those things. So this is what we call witness consciousness. And it allows us to, we don't need to believe every single thought that we think. So how do we know that you're not your mind? Some of you have tried meditating before, no? And when you're sitting there meditating, there's all these thoughts coming up, right? And you know, because it's very overwhelming when you're sitting there the first time meditating, oh my God, so many thoughts popping up. You know that you're not your mind because you can see your thoughts, no? Like everybody, you have some sort of object in your environment, a cup or a phone or whatever it is. And if you look at that object, right, you can see, okay, this is the cup. And if I were to close my eyes and again, see that cup, I can envision it in my mind. I recognize that that's a thought. It's not a fact. And so what I mean by this is if I can see my thought, I cannot be the thought, right? Just as I have the separation between me and the cup, I say, this is my cup. It's not, I am not the cup just because I can see it. This is the cup. And because I can see the cup, I know that I cannot be the cup, right? In the same way, if I can see the cup in my mind, I know that it's just a thought. It's not who I am. Now let's replace that cup in our mind with our sadness, with our anxiety, with the stories that our mind tells us. If we can see it, we cannot be it. I am the subject observing the objects of my mind, which is the thoughts, the feelings, the memories, the sensations. So the thoughts, they come and go. Every single thought that you've ever thought, it has come and gone. Every emotion has come and gone. But you, the watcher, the observer, the witness, always remain. So the watcher is who you are, not the changing thoughts. The thoughts are like the clouds, but you are the sky, right? So we can observe the clouds floating by, knowing that we are not the clouds. We are the vast open sky. So how do we start to apply this insight into action? So I'm going to propose a little practice for you. And this is a practice that we want to start to do to develop the skill of observing our mind, observing our thoughts, observing all of our experiences. So this is a practice where we become aware of our thoughts without judging them, without criticizing ourselves for having them. We're not trying to push anything away. We're not identifying with them or trying to change them in any way. Our job is just to notice them, to notice our thoughts with curiosity, with a sense of wonder. Fascinating when you start to observe your mind. Wow, there's so much that goes on up there, right? And most of it is complete nonsense. Start to observe that throughout your day. Notice all the nonsense that your mind says. That's not based on fact, not based on truth. And we can kind of be playful with ourselves. We can, like how I see my mind is like, oh, it's so cute. How cute that it gave that meaning to it that was completely not based on fact, right? So the key word with this awareness is curiosity. Develop this curiosity. We're not noticing our thoughts in order to use them as a weapon against us, to punish ourselves for having them, to judge ourselves for having them. You will have wild and crazy thoughts. And the reality is that every single one of us has intrusive thoughts, has thoughts that are like, oh, does anybody else think this? This is a little bit weird. Or a little bit, like, wow, I can't believe I see myself in that way. And we can almost feel sad when we start to realize like, wow, I can't believe that I think that about myself, when we really start to observe what we think and feel. But what's not sad is that when you become aware, right, what we can reveal within ourselves, we can start to heal. And so this is a process of revealing the contents of the mind so that we can do the next stages. We start with awareness. We don't stop here. We don't just, become aware of everything and just like leave it as it is. We're not just witnessing. There's more steps for us to go through in order to create changes and transformations. But this is the starting position. So this is a practice that sometimes it's going to feel easy. Sometimes you'll be able to laugh at your mind. Sometimes you're like, oh, how interesting, how fascinating that that thought came up again. And at other times, it's going to feel really hard. It's going to feel really uncomfortable to see what pops up for you in your mind. And I just want to validate that for you, that it's supposed to. It's not supposed to be comfortable all the time. And that's where healing really starts to happen, is when we can observe the contents of the mind with, again, coming back to that key word of compassion and curiosity. This is how we really start to develop self-awareness from a place that allows it to be sustainable. Okay. So here's a practice for you. And through Thrive, I'm going to try to give you the most practical, the most like instantaneous practices and shifts that will require effort and commitment, but effort and commitment that is so applicable that it's going to be practical for you. Excuse me. So this is a mind, body, and heart check-in. So this is a self-awareness practice. So our number one goal here is to develop the skill of self-awareness, the ability to observe your thoughts objectively. So meditation, of course, is so helpful. And one of the key reasons why we meditate is to develop the skill of observing our mind in a quiet space container, eyes closed, thoughts are coming up, and we're consciously observing them, consciously letting them come, letting them go. So if you have access to the guided meditation bundle, the Meditations for the Soul, I totally recommend, as you have the time and space for it, to use those meditations. They're on average, I think, like 10 to 12 minutes. The Transforming Fear one's really good. It's a little bit longer. But this can be helpful. I also recognize this isn't practical for everybody. And so I want to give you a 30-second practice that you can absolutely do every single day that's going to develop the skill of watching your mind. So this is a 30-second mindfulness meditation practice where we're going to start to collect some data of our minds, the information and the thoughts that we think, in order for us to use it later. So for 1 week, it's a short, simple, easy commitment. For 1 week, your homework is to set a reminder on your phone for once or ideally twice, no pressure, but if you have the time and space, and you can even take a sec to do it now. So it's a random time in your day. It doesn't have to be first thing in the morning or before bed. Ideally, actually a random time, like 2 p.m., where you're going to be in the flow of something that you can do a check-in and see, what was I thinking in that moment? Right? So we kind of want to catch ourselves off guard to see what is going through our minds in those moments. So set a little reminder on your phone each day, a little alarm. And in that moment, I invite you to take 30 seconds to check in with yourself and become aware. So we're becoming self-aware. If it felt comfortable to close your eyes for 30 seconds, just to close your eyes and to go into your experience, you can. If you're flowing through your day, you have kids, you're making dinner, you can just introvert your attention, keep doing what you're doing, but just become self-aware and commit that mental moment to yourself. And I invite you to become aware of 3 things. So physical body. So we want to be looking for, okay, what are the physical sensations in my body right now? Here I am cooking dinner. Do I feel expansive or do I feel contracted? Do I feel a bit heavy? Do I feel light? Do I feel hot? Do I feel cold? We kind of scan the body. Oh, I'm noticing I have a little bit of tension in my jaw. Oh, I'm noticing like my legs feel really heavy, or, my lower back's a little bit sore. And so we just check into the physical sensations. Okay. Next is the mind. So we want to do a mind check-in. What was I thinking when my alarm went off? What was I thinking in my mind? What was the sentence, the story? What were the thoughts and the beliefs? What was I believing in that moment? And we can write down. It's optional to write it down. It's helpful if you just make a quick 30-second note on your phone so you can see some data and see maybe there's some themes of like, oh, I have thought this thought, every day this week or something like that. If you don't have the time and space to write it down, you can just make a mental note of it, but I find it helpful and kind of cathartic and therapeutic to write it down. It'll take you 15 seconds. And then the heart. So heart is going to be the emotions. And I want to really clarify here distinct thoughts from emotions. So thoughts are, I think that I would really like a cup of tea. It's the sentences that our mind says. Emotions, it doesn't go, I feel that I would like a cup of tea. It's not, I feel you are a certain way. I don't feel they are like that. It means I feel, insert your emotion. So we sometimes in our language, we confuse thoughts with emotions. And an emotion statement is I feel sad. I feel angry. I'm feeling super frustrated. I'm enraged. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling exhausted. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling content. I'm feeling at ease. So that's the kind of check in there. Make a little note in your phone or your journal to notice any themes that kind of might come up over time. And this will be the little practice and homework for the week. So I am going to open us up now for a little check-in for anybody who would like to. So that ends our formal presentation, formal lesson for today. How we'll usually flow through these sessions is we'll have about an hour of presentation and learning like this. And then at the end, for anybody who would like to stay around for any Q&A, for a little check-in to share kind of your main takeaways, you're welcome to stay for up to another 15 minutes. If you have to go, you're welcome to, but otherwise I'd love to open it up and hear from you guys. I'd love to connect. So feel free to unmute yourself if you would like. And I'd love to hear from you guys. What is like your top key takeaway from today? What's something that you maybe learned or realized? Is there anybody who'd like to share and start? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh, hi.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, thank you so much. The main thing that I will take away from this is just reminding that anxiety is there for us. I've been going through quite a few bouts of it recently, and it's always like, why is it there? Why? And it feels like I'm fighting it quite a lot. Yeah, just that little reminder that actually it's probably there for a reason, and there's something that I can untangle from that and start to work with instead of against.
Oh, I love that, Danny. Yeah, what a powerful insight. It's so natural, no? Like when these things pop up, our natural anti-anxiety instinct is to push it away. It's to think, ooh, there's something wrong here. There's like something off. I shouldn't be feeling this. Sometimes we shame ourselves for feeling these things, especially, you know, if we're like in wellness professions. We're like, oh, I know I feel this sometimes. Like, man, I feel like I shouldn't, if I'm teaching about anxiety, I shouldn't feel anxious, right? Yeah. And it's just such a, you know, we're all so human and it's all a part of life. So I love what you shared and it's so true. I'm curious, Danny, was there like anything that you could kind of see that you would maybe like to share of maybe what was one kind of little message that you could identify maybe why that anxiety is showing up? Is there something that it's nudging you towards?
Yeah, starting to look after myself a little bit more. I can be a bit of a people pleaser or looking after other people all the time, but I'm not very good at just giving myself an evening to myself to just look after me or saying no to things and actually just doing what feels right for me. Yeah.
I love that. I can certainly relate. And I know that every single other woman in this group from people's application forms can also, they're all like nodding with you and like raising their hands like, yep, I hear you, Danny. I get it. So I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that insight, Danny. It's really, really special to get to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, beautiful. Okay, anyone else? Who else wants to check in? You can unmute. Hera?
Hi.
Hey, love. How are you?
I'm good. Just really happy to be part of this, Bindi. So I just thought I'd say that first.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, I guess some of the things that resonated for me was while I'm listening, I had to put baby back down and things like that. And normally that can be, especially if there's something I want to do, a real source of anxiety because I'm like, oh, I've got something to do, like, or whatever. And it was interesting, even when I was putting him back down literally 5 minutes ago, I was just starting to become aware of those thoughts. You know, I was practicing that. Okay, so what am I thinking? I'm thinking, I want to quickly go back to sleep so that, you know what I mean? It was just really interesting. So, yeah, just being aware of those, honestly, sometimes like a waterfall of thoughts that just flood us in moments where you feel a little bit out of control. or is that, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, so that was that was on top for me just now,
Mm.
that I felt like sharing. Yeah.
I love that, Hera. And I love to hear that you're able to apply it like that, of just like, oh yeah, right? To be able to
Yeah,
be
it's
aware in that
literally
moment.
happening.
It's just like, oh yeah, I have a great opportunity to practice. And like, okay, what are the thoughts that I'm thinking right now? And
Mm.
starting to maybe check in and see some themes. Like, of course, it's not going to be practical love. Like you're putting the baby down to sleep. You're not going to be taking notes in your journal or on your phone, which I
Yeah.
totally get. But just see if you can notice, like, okay, is there some common themes here? Is there a theme
Yeah.
that comes up of like, as Danny mentioned, like, oh, maybe the underlying thing here is like, I something's calling me to take better care of myself in this way, or to reach out and get more help and support. If the thoughts, I'm not sure, of course, your unique situation, but just as an example,
Yeah,
if our
yeah,
thoughts are
totally.
constantly like, oh, feeling so frustrated, like, oh, I have to do this again, and I'm feeling so tired, and I don't have help, I don't have support, then maybe it is, asking for help more, getting that support, or,
Yeah.
what that anxiety and that kind of waterfall, like you mentioned, of thoughts could be actually lovingly nudging you towards. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely the same as what Danny said, just like asking for help, looking after myself.
Mm,
Definitely. Which, yeah, is going to be hopefully will be a focus going forward as well. It's just, yeah, it can be tricky, but yeah, definitely looking after myself and practicing that self-care.
I love that. I love
Mm.
to hear that. And I want to just acknowledge and celebrate you and Danny and everybody else here and listening to the replay. Like this right here, you being here in this moment is a huge step, right? Of getting that help, getting that support, of seeking out the tools that are going to be able to help you in those moments. So I hope you can celebrate this for yourself as well, of like, I am getting help. I am taking this big step forward. And this right
Yeah,
here
totally.
is me taking care of myself.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, beautiful. So good to have you
All
here.
good. Good. Good to be here.
Anyone else feel the check in?
I would love to check in.
Tell me. Hey, Victoria.
Hi. So I loved your bit on emotional truth versus factual truth. So I've always had this battle of how others perceive me, and it goes with that people pleasing that I feel like is a repetitive pattern here. But when you spoke about the filters and where that may have stemmed from, and I don't know, I just had that light bulb moment where it's like it's okay to just be me for me and not worry so much about changing who I am for others. In this room I'm wearing this hat, in this room I'm wearing that hat, and it's okay that you might not be perceived a certain way or liked a certain way, but I don't know, that just a total light bulb moment for me.
Oh, I love that. And I can certainly relate, and I know so many can as well. All the hats. We wear so many hats, no? And it's so natural for us, especially if we find ourselves in these patterns of like people pleasing, right? To really be concerned about, and we're not always conscious of it. We're not walking through the world saying, I want you to like me, I want you to like me. It's very subtle, and we kind of adapt ourselves in such a way where unconsciously maybe there's like, I need them to like me because my sense of self-worth is dependent on how much they like me or not. And it's very subtle, it's very unconscious. But if we have this kind of belief in our mind of my self-worth, my inherent sense of self-worth is dependent upon whether they like me or don't, then my sense of self-worth is always going to fluctuate, because to the degree that that person likes me, approves of me, validates me, appreciates me, is to the same degree that my self-worth goes up or down. So if that's high, my self-worth feels high, and I get this little high of like, yay, they like me, and so I feel worthy. Or this kind of like low of like, oh, I don't think they like me, so I don't feel worthy. And I love what you shared, because this is something that I'm always working on within myself, and I'm so fascinated by, is when we have this dynamic of thinking that our sense of self-worth is dependent on what they think and feel about us, we're always trapped in this cycle of needing to be a certain thing for someone. And it's almost this like, we almost feel sometimes like we're abandoning ourselves, abandoning the true us that maybe is another way, or we feel disconnected from the truth of who we are. And when we feel disconnected, we often feel numb, to the beauty of life around us, the joy, the bliss, the happiness that is always available, but we kind of cut ourselves off when we have to mold into a certain way. So what do you think hearing that?
Oh, I'm just even thinking of examples right now at work. We're a part of different teams. And so on this team, I might speak out more. And then the next team, I'm more reserved because I'm scared what they're thinking. And it's like, that's just so silly in the grand scheme of things. And I'm already excited to try new things tomorrow.
I'm excited to hear that, Victoria. Well, I'm so glad you're here and thank you so much for sharing. Okay, my mom's here. My mom had something to share. She said her camera isn't on, but if you're unmuted, you can still share. Can we hear you?
How? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh,
Hi.
wow. Okay, that's awesome.
Hey.
So hi. I don't know why my camera's not on. I'm very technical. I'm not great at this stuff, but
You're here.
I know I
That's
can
what
see you
matters.
guys all. So I guess the one thing I want to share is I was really impressed with the simplicity in this. Like, just be aware of your thoughts. It's not like I've got to jump through superhuman efforts and leap off buildings or nothing like that. This is super simple. And this is something I can do. And I've already, just as you were talking, I'm already, oh my God, I can do that. That's easy. So thanks for keeping it simple, especially the first time. I appreciate that.
Oh, I love that. My poor mom has like come to Bali and done really intense retreats with me here, and she's had to sit in such long meditations and do really intense things. So I'm sure she's very, very excited to have things so simple. So thank you so much for sharing that.
It was so simple. So thank you, honey. I love
Nice.
it.
Love it. Love you. So I think that's it for now, you guys. I want to thank you all so much for being here. It's so exciting to have you and to get to see your beautiful faces, and for those on the replay as well. I'm so grateful you're here. And let's use the Facebook group for any questions that come up, anything you want to share, anything you learned or realized. There's always space for that there. And you're going to get an email for the replay and all the future replays, directly. As soon as they're accessible, you'll get an automatic email. And Danny, I'll fix yours today as well. So thank you so much again, everybody. So much love to you all. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you next week. Lots of love.